Tekken 7 has had a meteoric rise in popularity, getting bigger and bigger each year since its console release on June 2nd, 2017. This rise in popularity can be attributed to what the game has done right, which is a lot, but also surprisingly to what the game has done wrong. Back in 2017, I, like many other fighting game enthusiasts, were playing Injustice 2, which came out in May of that year. At the time, I was tearing through the battle simulator with my Aquaman, F in chat for pre-nerf Aquaman, and getting destroyed online. Then Tekken 7 dropped. At the time, I wasn't going to buy it due to having recently purchased Injustice 2, which I was enjoying, and I'm not made of money. But after much debate with a few friends on which game was better, I gave in and bought myself a copy, which has to be one of the best decisions I've made. As you can tell, I don't make that many good decisions. But I was pulled in by the enthralling story mode. That was a joke, much like Tekken 7's story. But I instantly fell in love with the game, much like I did when I first got my hands on a copy of Tekken 3. Tekken 7 released in 2015. But hold up, didn't I just say it came out in mid-2017? That's true for the console release, but before the game came to a console near your home, you needed one of these bad boys to play the game, which would set you back about $6,000 US. Or you could visit your local arcade, which was pretty much impossible outside Japan and Korea, where the arcade industry is going relatively strong. As it was only accessible to the Japanese and Korean players, they got some extra time to play around and get familiar with the game, as if the Koreans needed any further advantage. But when Tekken 7 finally became available to the rest of the world, fighting games were in a dire state. Street Fighter V had one of the worst releases, with Capcom thinking their consumers would be happy that they released an incomplete game. Besides Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite characters looking like plastic surgery gone wrong, there were no X-Men, Deadpool, or Fantastic Four due to character licensing issues, and Mortal Kombat X's lifetime came to an end with the release of Injustice 2. This created the perfect void for Tekken 7 to fill and continue to grow and claim the title of the current king of fighting games. Tekken 7 is what we call a legacy game, meaning it builds upon the gameplay mechanics that have been in place since the first Tekken, with some changes from game to game. Tekken 2 added attack reversals, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 allowed you to pick 2 characters, and Tekken 7 added power crushes, screw attacks, rage drives, and rage arts. And let's not forget the ultimate hype mechanic, the slow motion camera. These subtle mechanic changes, while adding something new to the game, also opened up more options in combos, character matchups, and move selection, keeping the series from stagnating. It maintains its 3D gameplay as opposed to more traditional fighting games which opt for a 2D presentation. In Tekken, characters can be moved backwards and forwards, but also right and left, which is represented as being towards or away from the camera, which is very different to some 3D fighting games which give you a behind the character third-person view. The extra dimension adds a whole new level of complexity to the game's movement system and move options. Avoiding an opponent's move isn't only about moving backwards and forwards, but also sidestepping, adding an extra layer to matchups where it's favourable to sidestep in either direction against certain characters. Yet the movement speed in Tekken 7 has certainly taken a nerf compared to previous installments in the series, such as Tekken 5. Each of the buttons, square, triangle, cross, and circle on a PlayStation controller are associated with left punch, left kick, and right kick respectively. Simple, right? Wrong. Tekken is regarded as one of the hardest fighting games, if not the hardest fighting game to learn, let alone master. The learning curve is Mount Thor steep, and the knowledge depth is that of Challenger deep. Some people call me a rap god. An argument can be made that this steep learning curve is such a hard obstacle to overcome for new players that it discourages them from the game. As this is a legacy game, it heavily favours older players, those who have been grinding it out since Tekken 4, Tekken Tag Tournament 1, Tekken 5, you get the point, there are many games before this one. They know the character matchups, they've practiced the movement and execution for hundreds of thousands of hours, all they have to do is learn the added mechanics in the new game. This certainly gives older players an advantage, However, the game's learning curve is also one of its greatest attractions. This is the one game where when I lose to someone, I instantly want to rematch, not because I'm salty about the loss, but because I want to learn the matchup. Every loss is a learning experience. I might come across a lore player using back 2-1, down 2-3. I quickly look up the move. It's -3 on block, so I can't punish. But the second move is high, so I can duck it and launch punish with Dragunov's while standing 2.
We play Dragunov, so you should literally install the game. Whatever you're doing is not worth your time, fucking pussy. Dragunov players are literally a bunch of small little bitches. Absolute manlets cocklords. The people who play Dragunov are little bitch-ass pussies. Fuck you.
Tekken 7 has slowly tried to integrate the new players. They made throw breaks easier. Before you had to see which hand was extended to find out which button you needed to press to break throws. Now all 1 and 2 breaks can be broken with either button. Auto combos have been added, which I feel are a horrible feature in any fighting game. But it means that new players don't have to learn long extended hard combos, but can mash a couple of buttons and get a combo for it. But why am I telling you guys about all this? This isn't a tutorial video. You can just play the game for the tutorial. Oh wait, you can't, because Tekken 7 doesn't have a tutorial. It's the biggest flaw in the game, besides a breakdancing cat girl that can 1-2 you to death. When you boot up the story mode and get to play as Heihachi, the game tells you some moves that you can use. Alright, this move looks cool. Electric Wind Godfist, how do you do it? Triangle, nice, that seems pretty easy. Let's go into practice mode. I want to be really good at using Heihachi, you know, he looked really cool in the story. Okay, let me open up the move list and you find out that the input for Electric Wind Godfist is forward down, down forward 2, with the down forward and 2 being pressed at the same frame. Yeah, so much for pressing triangle to do this. Forward down, down forward 2 might seem confusing to those who aren't familiar with Tekken notation, so let me quickly go over it. Standing on the player 1 side, on the D-pad, up is up, right is forward, down is down, and left is back. If you're on player 2 side, left and right are switched around. Square on the PlayStation controller or X on the Xbox controller is 1, triangle or Y is 2, cross or A is 3, and circle or B is 4. So when you see down forward 2 and are standing on the player 1 side, you would press down and right on the D-pad along with triangle. For a more depth explanation, watch this useful video by legendary Mihawk, but for the remainder of the video I'll be using Tekken notation when referring to moves or combos from this point on. But yeah, so much for pressing triangle to do an electric. However, every cloud has a silver lining. The lack of a tutorial mode meant that first time players of Tekken needed to learn the game. But nowadays you can't just go to an arcade and watch or ask the players there, but you can do all that stuff online.
You cannot be serious! That ball was on the line!
YouTube, along with Twitch streamers who were Tekken veterans and websites such as Tekken Zaibatsu, quickly became the go-to resources for new players. You can join Discord group chats for specific characters where all the information shared in that server is related to that character. Quick side note, Tekken Zaibatsu has recently closed down their website after 22 years of providing insightful information about everything Tekken. Not only did this mean that content creators were able to put out useful info about the game series that they loved, covering a wide range of topics, from the basics of how to move your character to more advanced techniques like how to do Brian's taunt jet upper.
How do I do taunt into jet upper with Brian?
You don't.
I've never got it once and I practice every day. Thanks BRUU.
Sorry man, I got real bad news. You don't!
But new players were able to easily integrate into the 26-year-old Tekken community, which can be hard and daunting for newcomers, especially when there's so much information available on a game. The lack of a tutorial mode has worked in the favour of Tekken, strengthening its player base by accidentally connecting veterans and newbies of the game, and causing people to search online to find answers, tips and tricks. It's one of the coolest things that you can drop into Lil Margin's Twitch chat and ask him a question related to King, a character Margin has been playing since the very first Tekken came out. A recent update to the game did add one of the best features for a fighting game, the frame data display, a part of the practice mode which allows you to see how plus or minus you are and even tells you the optimal punish to certain move, making learning matchups easier. There's even a replay function which tells you when to punish and what to punish with. This should be available from the beginning of any fighting game. It can be argued that Tekken 7 did have a very basic version of this where a character would be blue and then return to normal to show frame advantage or disadvantage, but this was nearly not good enough. NetherRealm has for many games now been adding the frame data for each character's moveset, which lets you easily open the move list from the practice mode and see the frame data. Dragon Ball FighterZ also added this feature recently. However, with Tekken 7, I have to go to my save frame data PDF and then scroll down to the character, then look up that move and then find the frame data. Now with the recent added update, I can do that through the practice mode, but this should be a standard, not a paid bonus. Tekken has a rich history of characters, with an ever-increasing roster. Tekken 7, after the Kunimitsu DLC, currently has 52 playable characters, with plans to add another DLC character that's going to be released in early spring of this year. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 still has the largest roster of any Tekken game with 59 characters, but that game allowed you to choose 2 characters to fight with on one team. The huge roster includes characters from previous games, new characters introduced in Tekken 7, and guest characters from different game series and even a TV show. It can be argued that some of these characters don't fit into the Tekken gameplay style due to them using weapons when Tekken is about realistic hand-to-hand combat, because a guy slapping a 210 kg brown bear into the air with ease is absolutely realistic. Other 2D game characters such as Akuma and Geese Howard have been so well integrated into the game that it feels as if they were always characters in 3D games. A roster of 52 characters gives the players a wide range of archetypes and playstyles to choose from. You want to play as a girl dressed up as a cat? Look no further than Lucky Chloe. You want to play as a guy dressed up as a cat? We got King and Armor King. You want to play as a bear? I present to you Kuma and Panda. Why are there so many animal characters in this game? Aside from the cat girls and boys, there are many different characters with their own positives and negatives which dictate the way they should be played, and it's up to you to find which characters fit your gameplay style. Do you want a character with above average execution? Then the execution heavy Mishimas might float your boat. Are you a player that wants to Korean backdash to cause your opponent to whiff and then punish? Also Mishimas. Mishimas are very good in this game. Tekken gives you the option to play a character that speaks to you. And that speaks volumes when you see how players have been playing the same character for almost 2 decades and stick with them no matter what. Examples of this being Jimmy J Tran, who has stuck with Brian even when Knee dropped him because he felt that Brian wasn't a good tournament character. A great man once said, "Perfectly balanced, as all things should be." It's words of wisdom that can loosely be applied to Tekken 7. Balancing characters or weapons is one of the most difficult yet crucial parts of any competitive game, especially for fighting games. Just take a look at what the recently added Black Ops Cold War guns did in Warzone, with the inclusion of the severely overpowered DMR, MAC-10 and Akimbo Diamantes ruining the game for many players. Taking a look at different player-made tier lists from season to season, we can see how the groupings of characters become smaller as each season progresses. These tier lists are made by different pro players, content creators and the likes, so discrepancies between them is natural, but we can see a general trend. What's most impressive when looking at the balancing is not just the sheer number of characters that need to be nerfed or buffed with each patch, but the fact that each character has 100 moves at their disposal. Now not all of these moves are viable. Yeah, you can do Brian's down forward 3 Snake Edge, leading to a pretty easy combo for 59 damage, but Snake Edge is 27 frames, making it easy to react to, and minus 26 on block. It can literally be punished by every while standing launcher in the game. Usually only 10 to 15 out of the 100 moves are good to use, so when it comes to nerfing characters, there's a small scope to look at, but when buffing moves, all the other moves need to be taken into consideration. A testament to Bandai Namco's great balancing is the fact that on a competitive level, pretty much every character is viable in tournament play. In a Marvel vs Capcom 2 tournament where money is on the line, the go-to team is Magneto Storm Sentinel or Magneto Storm Psylocke. Those are the best teams. But that's not the case in Tekken. Take a look at John Ding, who's been playing Eddie and Lucky Chloe and consistently placing in the top 8. Or Rang Chu, who won Tekken World Tour Finals using Panda while facing the god of Devil Jin himself, Kudans. Devil Jin was considered the best character at the time. So if you're new to Tekken and are asking what character should I play, pick anyone that looks cool to you and start learning the basics. But then we hit a problem, and it's a pretty big problem. I was recently watching Frame Whisper's video on whether fighting games are dying or not, based on an interview Tekken's game developer Katsuhiro Harada did regarding Tekken marketing, and he was mentioning how games are no longer seen as products but as services, or GAS, G-A-A-S, Games as a Service. To keep a game such as Tekken 7 alive for what is now 3.5 years, aside from the competitive scene, is the addition of content through the years in the form of paid DLCs. Now, this doesn't seem like a big problem besides the fact that each DLC character is $4.99 or $5.99. Releasing such content periodically keeps the game alive and bringing people back if they haven't played for some time. So what's wrong? The problem arises when we look at the recent DLCs that have been dropping. Out of the last 3 DLC characters, 2 of these characters have been extremely overpowered, with Fakuram even being banned from tournaments in Pakistan. Take a look at this top 8 character usage from EVO Japan 2020. Nearly every player was using Leroy. The problem here is that these DLC characters are pretty easy to use and very overpowered. The reason for this is obvious. New players can buy the game, they can buy these characters which aren't very hard to use but are very strong and can start winning straight away. This is only made more evident when we take a look at the win percentage of characters in online matches. Out of the top 5 characters with the highest win percentage, all 5 are DLC characters, and out of the top 10, 7 are DLC. Some of these characters are very new, so the overall match numbers will be less than characters that have been present from the beginning of the game, but the fact that 7 of the most winningest characters are DLC just exemplify the problem. The game shifts towards being a service, and the question becomes, how can we get more people to play and spend money? The answer being, we'll release some easy to use, overpowered DLC characters, and then we'll nerf them sometime in the future so that they fit in with the rest of the roster. This model is heavily orientated towards the financial side rather than the player experience. Tekken Bowling. The competitive scene for Tekken 7 has been thriving, with more and more players signing up for tournaments to the point where the EVO 2019 entrant numbers were 1,885, which is up from the 1,538 from the year before. The competitive scene has been very lively, and until recently, with COVID stopping all offline tournaments, Tekken 7 had been attracting more and more viewers. The matches that we have been treated to over the years have gotten better and better as players continue to get stronger.
Look at the time! Look at the time!
He's gonna have to either stay on the ground.
Look at the time! Look at it!
Oh my God! JDCR with an amazing comeback!
God! He's from the future!
He knew it!
He's from the future! He's already seen it!
A thriving competitive scene leads to many stories to unfold over the years, and as such, the Tekken 7's competitive scene can be broken down into 3 main story arcs. The Age of the Korean Dragons, which spanned 2 years from 2017 to 2018, then came the rise of the Pakistani Dragonslayers in 2019, and finally came the Ultimate Competitors, COVID-19 and Sexual Misconduct in 2020. – 2017 can be called the year of the Echo Fox boys, JDCR and Saint, in particular the year of JDCR. JDCR ruled the competitive scene of Tekken 7 with an iron fist. Out of the 15 tournaments he played, he finished first 10 times, second 3 times, and third twice. He never finished below third. He became the EVO champion of that year too.
And JDCR is our EVO 2017 champion.
His biggest rival was his fellow teammate and countryman, Saint, who met him in 6 finals and multiple times before the grand finals. With such a dominating performance, 2017 was clearly the year of JDCR. A new year came, and so did a new champion of the Iron Fist. This time it was the Korean legend Knee, regarded as the best Tekken player of all time. Not competing in many tournaments in 2017, paired with struggling to find a character to play as he felt that his longtime main, Brian, wasn't tournament viable, left him out of the question for most of 2017. But Knee came back strong in 2018. He didn't find a character to play in 2017? That's fine. Knee's solution was to master and play every character in the game, and that's what he did. Knee played a total of 13 different characters in tournaments, in a game where most people have been playing only one character over multiple games. At times, Knee played 6 to 7 characters in one tournament. This definitely seemed to work for Knee. Out of the 12 tournaments he competed in, he won 8 of them. While 2 Koreans were standing out from the crowd in each respective year, their countrymen were following close behind, with most of the top 8s filled with other Koreans, with the likes of Chanel, Kakoma, Lohai, John Ding, Rang Chu, and others finishing strong. It can easily be said that the Korean Tekken computers, with their database of frame data and surgical execution, dominated the first 2 major competitive years of Tekken. The age of the Korean Dragons was going strong, but that all changed when the Pakistanis emerged. Late 2018, Knee and Chanel were invited to Dubai to compete in the OUG tournament. There, Knee came across one particular Tekken player by the name of Arsalan Ash, hailing from Pakistan. Arsalan Ash went on to defeat Knee twice, once in pools sending Lee to losers, and then again in the grand finals, both times without losing a single game. However, this dominating performance was ultimately branded as a fluke, and not much attention was given to it. Come 2019, and the new EVO Japan tournament was being held for the second time. The tournament was stacked with the biggest names in Tekken 7, all competing for the prized EVO crown. However, one by one, the big names of Korean Tekken were being eliminated on the first day, not even reaching top 8. Knee, Chanel, and Lohai were all eliminated before top 8. Knee losing before top 8? That hadn't happened since November 2017. It was all because of one man, Arsalan Ash. What was said to be a fluke a few months before now felt more legitimate. He then went on to win the tournament, beating Book, Jimmy J. Tran, arguably the best player in America, Chikaran, one of the best players from Japan, Cherryberry Mango, a Korean, need I say more? And AK, the best player from the Philippines. Arsalan Ash stamped his authority on the Tekken world and announced himself as the man to beat. After announcing himself and his country to the competitive world, Arsalan went on to dominate 2019. In the 10 tournaments that he competed, he won 6 and finished in the top 8 in 3. Arsalan then went on to win EVO Las Vegas, the biggest fighting game tournament on the planet, again beating Knee in the grand finals.
Knee looking for this opportunity.
I'm holding my breath.
Oh! They trade blows.
Oh man, that was a crazy trade. Arslan cementing his position as the best Tekken player on the planet, untouchable by any country that he has faced thus far. Very, very nice.
Beating a Korean player is already hard enough, but consistently beating the strongest Tekken player at the time and other Koreans with what looked like ease is no small feat. Arsalan not only put himself on the map, but the whole Pakistani Tekken community, with Knee, among other Korean and Japanese players, travelling to Pakistan to train. But this was the year of the Pakistani Dragonslayers, with an S. Following Arsalan's inspirational run at EVO Japan, from the depth of the Pakistani hyperbolic time chamber came Awais Hani, Hira Malik, Atif Butt, Bilal, Ahsan Ali and Ghassan, all ready to make a name for themselves. But it's not all plain sailing for the Pakistani players. Awais Hani and Atif Butt were both denied visas to travel and compete in Rev Major in the Philippines. With the Pakistani boys not present, the top 8 was again dominated by Korean and Japanese players. Atif was also denied his visa to Japan, stopping him from competing in EVO Japan 2020. The Visa-Pakistan matchup is a 9-1. You have to nerf these guys somehow. The Pakistani players really stamped their authority in 2019, with Arslan Ash leading the way and making competitive Tekken 7 very exciting. 2020 was going to be an interesting year for competitive Tekken, with Pakistan arriving to the scene and claiming the top spot as the strongest Tekken country in 2019. But it was not meant to be. The year, as we know, has been hindered and halted by the spread of the coronavirus. As tournaments are all held in person, it meant no tournament was able to take place. But no worries, we live in an age of the internet, and while an online connection cannot replicate the offline, with lag and input delay making a small yet noticeable difference to the gaming experience, it's better than nothing. On May 13th, the organizers of EVO announced that the tournament would be held online over the period of 5 weekends. Great news. Not so great news for EVO CEO Joey Coulier, who was leveled with sexual misconduct charges and replaced by temporary CEO Tony Cannon. But it was not enough. By that point, Bandai Namco, Capcom, NetherRealm and Main 6 had all pulled out from the event, and EVO 2020 had to be cancelled. 2020 was primed to be one of the best years for Tekken 7, but it was not meant to be. Some online tournaments were held in various countries, but it wasn't the same without the atmosphere created by the crowd and being on stage. Hopefully 2021 is a better year for competitive Tekken. Since its release in June of 2017, Tekken 7 has been increasing in popularity with a slight setback last year. Without much competition from other fighting games, it has been able to fill a void that had formed in recent years and is arguably the best fighting game right now. With solid mechanics and a large roster with many more legacy characters available to be added as DLC in the future, Tekken 7 can carry on growing, as there are currently no plans for Tekken 8. This game has been one of my favorite fighting game experiences, from tuning in on weekends to watch competitive Tekken to watching streamers play the game. Like, I don't know a word that Lohai is saying, but I know that I'm watching some
Good ass Tekken.
I, like many others, have been able to enjoy high-level Tekken to its fullest. Some of the best memories of my summer holidays was pulling all-nighters playing Tekken 7, being forced to listen to Unravel while discussing how Tokyo Ghoul ruined the first part of Tokyo Ghoul. The future of Tekken 7 looks good as it sits upon the throne as the current king of fighting games.